Hey guys, so I apologize ahead of time. I just got home from work and it is like, it's 7:15 here and it is pitch black out. Actually, when it was like dark at like just about 5 o'clock, so like the lighting is terrible, I know that. But anyways, recently Emily from Beauty Brodcast did a tag video on perfect palettes, and she did it as an open tag to anyone who was watching, and I am a huge Beauty Brodcast fan, so I decided I was going to take on this tag because it is something that I think is really important, because I think it's always good to have a great palette, a great eyeshadow or face palette, just because then you have so many options. But of course, if you're like me, you have like, oh, a little fuzzy there. If you're like me, you have like a billion, and not just because I blog about it to you guys, but because they're awesome. And I have a slight little tiny addiction. But anyways, so I have just a list here of what the questions were and what my responses were. So if you see this sheet popping up at any point during the video here, it's because there's a lot of things. The first one is best packaging. I have to admit, I tend to like really simple, clean packaging. I don't need anything fancy, but I have to say, out of all the palettes I own, probably my favorite for packaging alone are the Disney Princess palettes. So that's Ariel, Jasmine, and Cinderella. And I just love them because they have such whimsy to them. They really reflect the movies that they come from. They have, they're so creative, and they look so nice. Like, normally I don't have the actual palettes themselves in here. And on top of that, the palettes are fantastic because they're super pigmented. They're super, like, fun. And as you guys know, the Ariel palette is awesome because I've done a review on that one already. And, like, to be quite frank with you, I love these so much just because they're so pretty. There are times when I just pull them out to look at them. Going on to the next one, best color payoff. Now this was kind of a hard one because I have a lot of palettes that are really good. Like, obviously, you guys know how I feel about Wet n Wild, but as much as I love Wet n Wild, for color payoff, I had to go with Coastal Scents. I just have the 88 Shimmer palette here because it's what I just grabbed from my drawer. And I mean, they are insane. I'm just going to show you sort of a little bit of, a variety of different colors. I mean, like, look at that! So bright, so pigmented, so unbelievably awesome. And definitely can't live without those, I know that for sure, because I use them all the time. Just the same as my Wet n Wild shadows. All the time. Most versatile. This one was kind of a hard one for me. I really couldn't choose just one. I kind of have two sort of palettes here. The first one is the Cargo 7 in 7. It's kind of a kit. I don't have everything in here because it just knocks around in the case a lot. But I mean, you get a lot of products, and you can really vary the way that you wear them. So I kind of like that. It's not really like a true palette where you get, like 6 eyeshadows and 2 blushes and like maybe some lip products or something. But it works the same way because just as well, you can take the lip gloss, instead of wearing their beach bronzer, you can use their lip gloss and have sort of, you can have that as your blush. Or instead of using your eyeshadows, you can use the blush instead. So, I mean, it has tons of versatility. And so that's the reason why I chose that. But vice versa, if you wanted to go that way, with strictly eye products or strictly some other kind of products, the 252 Ultimate eyeshadow palette from Cargo, because it has it also has so much versatility. It's got, it's got all your warm colors. It's got sort of a rainbow palette here where it's got just like a variety of purple and green, and I call this one the rainbow palette because that's kind of what it is. And then this one, I'm just gonna sort of keep it in the case because there is one eyeshadow in here that's broken. That one right there. And it's more of a cool palette where it's got lots of blues and greens and cool browns. So, like I said, there's tons of versatility in this palette as well. So, I mean, you can't really go wrong with either. It just depends on what your definition of a palette is. Best for traveling. Again, I had a tough time with this because it was kind of a toss-up between Wet n Wild Shadows and the Urban Decay Naked Basics palette. I ended up going with this one because I felt it just was a little more versatile than the Wet n Wild palettes, I guess. Because two of them are color-oriented palettes, and the third one is again, it's neutral, but it's still got a lot of color to it. It has like green and sort of a shimmery brown blue, and I just felt like this was just so much easier for traveling because you can get so many looks just from this palette alone. And if you're feeling like you're, maybe you want a little bit of color, you just take a colored single colored eyeshadows with you, or get a Z palette. Sorry, I'm Canadian, so we say Z here, so it feels weird to say that. And, just grab one of those, pop eyeshadows out, and keep your colored eyeshadows in there. Take this. It makes things so, so easy. And I take this with me all the time when I'm traveling, because I do a fair amount of travel. And I think that one's just great for all the time. I think you guys know what's coming with the next one when I tell you what the title of this one is. Biggest regret. I'm fairly certain you guys know exactly which one I'm talking about. Even though I used it in a recent tutorial, it has to be the Marc Jacobs palette. Because the colors are so, like, these two are so similar in here, and they look similar when you swatch them. These two are surprisingly similar when you swatch them. These two are similar when you swatch them. And when you get down to it, all four of them are virtually the same color. It's just one's slightly more cool and one's slightly more warm. And I believe I even mentioned the fallout from these are absolutely incredibly, horribly terrible. Like, I cannot stress, unless you've tried this, and I definitely don't suggest that you do, unless you've tried these, you have no idea how bad the fallout from these are. And if this was not like a $70 eyeshadow palette, I would probably throw this out. But I've paid $70 for it, I might as well use it at some point. Best color names. As much as I want to say Disney, because they have some really great color names, I'll just grab a Cinderella palette here, just to show you. Like, they have Pumpkin Coach, they have Ball Gown, they have Jacques. As much as I love the names in these ones, I have to give it up to Urban Decay. Now, you're probably going, I don't recognize those, or you might be going, whoa, those are old. And it's true, I have not bought an Urban Decay palette in a long time. These were actually gifts from a friend. So, I mean, I'm not going to throw them out just because they're not, available anymore. But they have some really great names. Like, they have a neutral here called Skimp. They have one called Limelight. They have one called Money. In this one, that was the Mariposa palette, by the way. In this one, they have a green with the awesome name of Graffiti. Like, fishnet. Purple. Like, how can you argue with names like that? They're just so fun and so creative that you can't really say no to them. And even their single shadows and like their Vice palette and their Smoked palette, their Basics palette, they all have fantastic names to all their shadows. And I love that they actually name them, because not all eyeshadow brands really name them. They're just like Blue 1, C2. Really boring. Really, really boring names. So I have to give them credit for that. Least used palette. Actually, surprisingly, this one was pretty easy. I have to say, my Sephora, I think this is like the medium shopping bag. This was like one of the first palettes I ever bought. Because before that I wasn't really wearing eyeshadow, and then I was just like, yeah, might as well, try out some eyeshadow, and I was like, might as well get a palette because that's going to be a good bang for my buck. And I just find that all the colors in here are kind of boring, dull, unoriginal. And I mean, the set even comes with like ridiculously small blushes. Like, here is my blush brush, here is the blush. Like, there is no way without, if I want to use this color, which is matte, I'm going to end up with this shimmery shade on there. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. I have to give them credit, though, for putting the lip product in a separate drawer, because it keeps all the fallout out of them. However, you have cream eyeliners in with the shadows, and of course you're gonna get fallout in there, which is just kind of ridiculous. And the final question: most used, most loved, and desert island. This again was a really, really, really tough one, because they're like, I use Coastal Scents, my Coastal Scents palettes all the time. I use my Wet n Wild, which did end up being the winner, all the time, because they're super pigmented and they just have sort of a fun sort of effortlessness to them. And these guys, I mean, they're inexpensive, so why not use them? Because then I don't have to worry about like a week's shipping. So definitely Wet n Wild, big win on that. Most loved, I'm not gonna lie, it's my Ariel palette. And anybody who's seen my first impressions video knows how much I love this palette. It's so fun and it's so whimsical, and it's got great blues and greens and purples in there. How can you resist that? Unless you're my best friend, in which case she like does not want color in any of her makeup. She wants like the most neutral colors you can get. So, I mean, who am I to argue with that? As for Desert Island, I had to give it to Wet n Wild again. More specifically, their Blue Had Me at Hello palette. Just because I think it's got a nice range to it. I mean, you've got white and silver and black, so it's sort of that classic smoky eye. You've got some colors that you can play with. It's just really nice. It's got solid packaging, it's got solid colors, it's got solid pigmentation. This is, if I had only one palette with me, this would be the one I choose. So I hope this gives you some insight to my favorites, and this is definitely a tag for anybody else who is watching this and wishes to do one, if you're a blogger or a vlogger or anything like that. Because it's just fun, and I like telling you guys what I like, and I like seeing what other people like, because then it inspires me to try it myself. So I will see you guys next time. Bye!